intended to normalize. It holds little power in itself, but is inextricably linked to cultural and social rules and norms that give it meaning and influence. Without the social pressures that shape our ideals and our choices, prison would be merely a physical barrier to living freely. As it is, we each are socialized into believing that there is one general path to happiness, health, and normality, and this is obedience. We obey the call to any of several lifestyles our culture deems appropriate and good, and disobedience to social laws breeds disobedience to actual laws, and each is a transgression. When a member of our society transgresses, we call him to task and embark on a journey towards punishment and rehabilitation. Everyone feels bad about it, but normalization ensures a happy life for both the perpetrator and the victim, and it is necessarily enforced. Crime, whether actual or social, has not always been dealt with in this way. Over the last few centuries, punishment has become refocused. As we have modernized and matured, we as a society have lost the taste for physical punishment for crime. Instead, we discipline the soul. In the days when perpetrators were publicly drawn and quartered, beheaded, hung, stoned to death, relieved of appendages, and brutally tortured, the body was seen as the link to the soul and was thus the object of punishment. Today we have little interest in such harsh measures because as we have civilized, we have humanized, and torture is a crime in itself. Today we discipline by depriving criminals of the rights we prize most: the right to freedom, the right to life, the right to privacy, the right to vote, the right to choose. Only in this way can we normalize those who would transgress. If normalization doesn't hold, we at least take them off the streets. Our judicial process is particularly interesting because of the way it avoids guilt. When a crime is brought to the courts, every measure is taken to ensure that the verdict is fair. Our ideal model is structured in the following way. A defense attorney is provided for the criminal regardless of the nature of the crime. A jury of 12 gives the verdict to guarantee impartiality and a majority decision. No one juror takes the burden of condemning a man. The burden is shared by many and lessened by the knowledge that the decision was echoed by other citizens. The judge decides the sentence, but leans on the verdict of the jury first, and thus does not wholly shoulder the condemnation. Prison guards and workers simply maintain the system and did not design it. The inventors of the prison industrial complex were working on commission for the greater good, and so on and so on. No one individual, except for the prisoner himself, takes on the guilt of conviction, and he will pay for his sins with far more than the ease of his conscience. In today's world of democracy, human rights, and civil rights, we will punish his soul.
Problems cannot be solved by the same level of consciousness that created them. Albert Einstein. The prison world is now in a crisis. The only three reasons that prison exists are for free labor, restoration, and containment. The idea of reformation is long gone. Prisoners are now not only rehabilitated in prison, but are made meaner and stronger before being released back into the streets. Unless the prisoners can experience an entire psychological change, there is very little hope of recovery. Discovering a different psyche is impossible in the world of prison. In a place where people struggle to survive on a daily basis, it is impossible to avoid becoming hardened. Prisoners become cold and numb as a way to cope with the sexual and physical assaults that are an unfortunate part of their daily lives. In a place where a stare that is 1 second too long can get you killed, it is difficult not to become a killer yourself. One way to cope would be to become a person who has nothing to lose. Saying this, you must keep in mind that many prisoners are not killers when they enter prison, but are in containment for reasons such as mental illness or money fraud. Inmates with mental illnesses have commonly served 3 or more incarcerations. Many prisoners don't come from ghettos, but from suburban areas, or are victims of 3 strikes rule. These prisoners certainly leave prison affected by the lifestyle. People that have been incarcerated leave prison with the same, if not worse, mentality that they entered with. Prisoners get out of prison and practice the same violence that got them into prison in the first place because it is reinforced in the prison experience.